Hello, welcome everybody. I would like to announce another wonderful workshop that NATAA is hosting with Piotr Jusik. And this workshop is Bridging Cultures with Transactional Analysis. And it's on March 29th on a Saturday, which actually is my birthday, from 1 till 3. So I certainly will remember. And welcome, Piotr.
Welcome. Thank you.
A little bit about Piotr. Piotr Jusik, MSc, is a professional teaching and supervising transactional analyst, an accredited counselor psychotherapist, and an executive coach. Born in Poland and now based in Guatemala, he works internationally in English, Polish, and Spanish. And as a coach therapist, counselor, and group facilitator, he collaborates with research and training institutes in Poland, India, and the UK. That's pretty vast. Again, welcome. It's so lovely to see you.
Because Alexis, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited about your workshop, and I just have a few questions so people can get to know you a little bit if they don't already know you, because I know you're out there. Anyway. Few questions. What is your interest in different cultures?
Ever since I was a teenager, I loved traveling, I loved people, and I love learning. And for me, getting really interested in cultures reveals something about the human condition. I'm in Mexico City at the moment, and I love this moment when you go out into a different culture and you're going to be surprised. Yeah, there will be things that you're not familiar with. And for me, it's an important part of learning. And also culture is, we can consider it as another way of scripting or conditioning. If we look at the human condition and diversity around the world, culture gives us all sorts of messages, and these are important in coaching and counseling. If we look at different cultures as a kaleidoscope, each and every one of them has a particular point of view. And by exploring those points of view, we can sense something universal about humanity. And I receive that with humility and with admiration for what we can find in the richness of humanity.
Wonderful. And Piotr, why is it important to bridge different cultures and intercultural relationships?
Well, let's look at the state of the world. We face complex, interconnected challenges. So unless we find ways to create mutual understanding, unless we create conditions to bridge those gaps with our differences, we will have challenges, we will have problems. So I think if we really want to be inclusive, we need to look at how we can collaborate. And also when we look at systems, whether these are human systems or biological systems, systems that are diverse are more resilient, actually. Interestingly enough, I think it was yesterday on the news, on the BBC, the former Prime Minister of Singapore was talking about how immigration can also enrich a country. Of course, it is a complex process, and yet if we create this cocktail of abilities, ideas, and dynamism, it can propel innovation. So there are various reasons for which it is important actually to bridge cultures, some of which I just talked about, yeah.
Yes, well, I was going to ask you for an example, but can you give an example what that would look like when there are intercultural relationships, or where we can see it happening already?
Yeah, well, part of my work was teaching in international schools before I moved to Guatemala. So even in an international school where you've got 11 different nationalities in one classroom, you've got plenty points of view. That is one example. A bit closer to where I live, actually, in Guatemala, working with NGOs where you might have 7 different cultures, 2 Mayan cultures, Italian, Argentinian, Spanish, Polish, American, and how we get together to problem solve. For instance, those who speak English speak low context language, so everything is direct and explicit. Guatemala is more of a high context culture. So things are implied. You wouldn't necessarily say, well, I don't want to do that. You would imply that it's difficult. Yeah. So how people collaborate in such an organization is crucial for the success. Yeah.
So you see it working well, actually, when it is
Um,
brought together these. I mean, a perfect example is in the school where you see these different cultures come together. I think it's a beautiful example of children, bringing children together, young people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember working with some wonderful groups of young people where they had such empathy. It was during the crisis when the one of the block of flats in London burned, and there were, lots of casualties. And there were these young girls who were just so fiercely empathetic, and they were creating all sorts of initiatives to help people, to bring blankets. I think that's an example of how empathy that stems from intercultural collaboration can actually work towards the life of the community.
Yeah, wonderful. About TA, how do you use TA in your work?
So I'm mainly a counselor. So about 70% of my work is counseling, straightforward counseling. That's my bread and butter. Also executive coaching with leaders. So it may be someone who runs a hospital in the UK, or it may be someone who runs an NGO in Guatemala. So yeah, coaching, and also group facilitation. So learning and development programs in NGOs. I like big processes as well. So we just had a conference in Guatemala, so running a group process for 60 people and seeing what we can create together. I love that kind of work. Yeah. And apart from that, I supervise transactional analysts and I train. We've got a training institute in Guatemala where we teach TA. Yeah.
Mhm. So, in your workshop, what will people learn in your workshop, and how do you incorporate then transactional analysis? Which
Mm.
which concepts and how do you use it in bridging these intercultural relationships? Can you give an example of that?
Sure. So what will people take away is, first of all, self-awareness. So my adult ego state, am I aware of what's happening in my parent and child when I make contact with another culture? That's for a start, actually, because I will have all sorts of messages in my parent that I took on board from culture, and I will have all sorts of messages in my child. So that's self-awareness in the adult ego state. That's a starting point. Also, how we can create what I call shared frames of reference. So we all have got this pair of glasses, this filter on reality, and it hugely is influenced by culture. Having awareness of that is crucial. Yeah. And when I have that awareness, I know what are the blocks to intercultural contact. So another TA concept is about resources. So I work in the counseling field, and we're very much interested how to enhance strengths, options, how to expand the adult ego state. And we do that through various resources that we can have in the past, in the present, and in the future. So creating those conditions by having mutual understanding. If I know what is, for instance, the distribution of power in a particular relationship, I can invite those resources. I'm not creating adaptation, but I'm actually creating like fertile soil for things to grow. Yeah.
Mhm. That sounds wonderful. And in your workshop, will you have people also, will it be interactive? Will people work or can they ask questions? How do you set it up? What can people
Absolutely.
expect when they take your workshop?
There will be all sorts of exercises. I ask people to bring a sheet of paper for the workshop and some color markers actually for that. There will be discussions and yeah, group process. I very much rely on interaction. So yeah, please fire away questions. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, because I've known you for a while and we've gotten together in the park and in New York and talked a lot. So I really hope that people will get a good sense of who you are. You're such a beautiful person. So I thank you so much, Piotr, for this interview. And I hope to see many of you at the workshop Bridging Cultures with Transactional Analysis with Piotr Jusik, March 29 from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.
Thank you very much.